Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. We did the most evil queens. Now the most evil kings in British history. My name, or just the most evil kings in history. Sorry, it's Watch Mojo UK. I got confused. Preemptive like. Not all of you like Mojo. Watch Mojo videos have got to be the most controversial videos in people. Yeah, they get a lot of views and a lot of people seem to like it, but it seems that like my more base of history videos and some people just from the UK who think a lot of these lists are bogus. Fine. Okay, I've said this a lot. I'm a sucker for top 10 lists, and I like learning about a lot of British stuff or just European history. Watch Mojo UK is great for that. And so I'm going to keep reacting. Okay. Original link to the video, top of the description. Right below that, link to the Discord. Click on the link. It'll send you right over there. I got to make promotions. Yeah, don't be shy. And right below that, link to my second channel, which I've really been neglecting lately, but I will get back to soon. I do more comedy and sports-related content. Yeah, so let's do it. I said my name's Connor, right? Rhode Island, New England, USA, in that order. Let's go.
Rulers are remembered for the wrong reasons.
Huh?
Many people desire to be remembered by history, but
Who's
these
gonna be on
rulers
here?
are remembered for the wrong reasons.
Vlad the Impaler.
The king.
Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 evil kings in history.
Are they going to put Henry VIII in here, or is he always just seen as...
Before we begin, if you enjoy this video, please subscribe for more great content. For this list, the individuals do not necessarily have to have held the title of king, as we're including anything equivalent in power.
I'm sorry, pause again. Helga of Kiev, or Olga of Kiev, which was in the most evil queens episode I did. She scares the hell out of me, and I'm terrified.
Number 10, John, King of England. Reigning from 1199 to 1216, King John is thought by many historians to have been the worst monarch in British history. And considering how long that history is...
Sorry, when was he?
Been reigning from 1199 to history. And considering how long that history is, that's saying something. For starters, he betrayed his own brother, who was fighting in the Crusades at the time, by attempting to seize power while he was gone. Eventually, he did become king, and to prevent any potential uprising, it's believed he had his own nephew Arthur murdered. John further alienated the English nobles by losing all of Normandy to France and exiled those he felt suspicious of.
Your father, Sir Walter, owes tax to the crown.
I've never seen this movie.
My crown.
To top it off, he frequently forced himself on their wives and immediately broke the agreement of the Magna Carta, beginning the First Barons' War.
I think you'll find our grievances more serious.
I think you find mine now.
I don't think you will, actually.
Number 9, Jain,
Remonarch.
Emperor of China. While his era name might have meant right virtue, the Jain Emperor was neither right nor virtuous. He became emperor at age 14, but had little interest in ruling China. He became emperor at age 14, but had little interest in ruling China. Instead, he invested his time into brothels or his harem, which held so many women that many starved to death due to lack of food. He once ordered his ministers and soldiers to dress up as street vendors so that he could walk through his palace and play act as a commoner in the marketplace. Those who refused were severely punished. He reportedly died at age 29 after he drunkenly fell into the foul waters of the Grand Canal and came down with a fatal illness. Number 8, Vlad the Impaler, Voivode of Wallachia. You have to figure that the person who inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula wouldn't be the nicest of guys. Vlad reigned as Prince of Wallachia on 3 separate occasions during the 15th century and demonstrated a marked tendency toward bloodthirstiness. Purging those who plotted against him was only the start. Vlad enjoyed torturing his prisoners, including roasting them alive, skinning them, and removing several body parts before finally killing them. Of course, his favourite method of execution was impalement, with some sources claiming he once had 20,000 corpses impaled outside the capital city. Vlad sought to earn such a reputation for
Sorry, but that...
method of execution.
So it's not a method of execution. if they're already dead when you stick them on the pike? Or did they do it to some live people?
Was impalement, with some sources claiming he once had 20,000 corpses impaled outside the
I've been
capital
too Paul's
city.
happy.
Vlad sought to earn such a reputation for savagery and brutality that his enemies would be reluctant to attack him, and yeah, he achieved that goal. Number 7, Leopold II, King of the Belgians.
He's only number 7? I thought he'd be way higher on the list. As in lower on the list.
The second King of the Belgians, Leopold II, earns a spot on this list for his atrocious behaviour in the Congo. Although the Congo was not a colony of Belgium, Leopold secured it on the grounds that he would improve the lives of the native inhabitants. To put it simply, he did not. He forced the natives to harvest rubber, earning him a fortune, but leading to the deaths of around 10 million Congo natives. The men were forced to work, and if they refused, their wives and children were mutilated.
What Leopold did was to establish government as a system of organized plunder.
Reports of extreme human rights abuses eventually led to a huge international scandal, and ultimately, Leopold was forced to surrender the colony.
So he's on like a Hitler-type scale, maybe even worse, because I guess that was like... How long prior to World War II is that? But 10 million people.
Number 6, Herod the Great, King of Judea. The ancient world has its fair share of terrible rulers, and Herod ranks right near the top of the list. The King of Judea from 37 BC to 4 BC, he is perhaps best remembered for the Bible's account of his attempted murder on Jesus Christ as an infant.
What is unwise, Tero, is to take such a prophecy too lightly.
The Bible states that Herod tried to achieve this goal by ordering the murder of every boy under 2 years of age in Bethlehem, although some sources claim this may have never actually happened. He had several of his family members murdered, including his wife and sons, and his enormous spending was largely responsible for the debilitating poverty amongst his people. No one...
Right, so crucifixion was... I always thought it was just like this new thing for... before I learned about this, for like this new kind of torture execution for Jesus, and that's how he became super famous. But it's clearly it was a very common form of execution that must have happened for decades, if not centuries, prior to Jesus.
He needed some 2,000 soldiers as bodyguards.
Make my enemies your enemies, and I offer you a substantial gift.
Number 5, Genghis Khan, Great Khan of the Mongol Empire. The founder of what would become the largest contiguous empire the world has ever seen, Genghis Khan was certainly an effective leader, but he was also extremely ruthless. His army didn't only crush other armies, it destroyed civilians and children along with the armed soldiers. In fact, some sources claim that over 700,000 people were murdered in one massacre alone. He allowed his soldiers to rape women in front of their families and enslaved hundreds of thousands of people. Considered by many to be a genocidal ruler, it's estimated his armies killed somewhere between 20 and 60 million people during his 21-year reign. Number 4, Nero, Emperor of the Roman Empire. He was the man who
Are they going to put Caligula ahead of Nero?
fiddled while Rome burned.
And I will sing.
Although this claim is contested by several
gonna say,
historical
isn't that a
scholars,
myth?
as the fiddle wasn't invented until the 10th century, Nero was no doubt one of the worst emperors in the history of the Roman Empire.
Someone spoke. Did I give permission to speak? Tavis, did I give permission?
He murdered several members of his own family, including his wife, whom he reportedly kicked to death while she was pregnant, as well as his mother and aunt. Nero also forced his top advisor to commit suicide. He blamed the Great Fire of Rome on Christians and used them as human torches to light his palace. In fact, his treatment of Christians was so horrific that many Christians believed him to be the Antichrist. He eventually committed suicide, ending a 14-year reign of terror.
Is then the end of Nero?
Number 3.
I just want to say, it was either Nero or Caligula. They do put Caligula above Nero. Little Boots. Either Nero or Caligula had this episode where they were really close to death and really sick and were about to die, and people in the Senate in Rome, or people around him, they were saying, like, proclaiming, like, I would give my own life to save Nero or Caligula, I forget which one it was, and then the Nero or Caligula ends up surviving. And then when these people who said they would give up their life if he survived, they went over to Nero or Caligula. I'm just gonna say Caligula, to where he had recently recovered, and they were thinking they were going to get some sort of like honor or something because of how thoughtful and adamant they were about him surviving. And actually, Caligula or Nero ended up being like, okay, well, you said you'd give your life if the god saved me. Well, I'm alive, so you gonna go up on your bargain here? And they had to commit suicide.
Free Caligula, Emperor of the Roman Empire.
If only all Rome had just one neck.
From one Roman emperor to another, the supremely sadistic Caligula actually ruled before Nero and may have provided the blueprint for Nero's madness. Believing he was a god, Caligula quickly began murdering people for his own amusement when he became Rome's third emperor in AD 37. He was rumored to have forced his 3 sisters to have sex with him, and frequently had sex with the wives of his personal bodyguards, whom he made stand outside the room and listen. He made it illegal for people to mention the word goat in his presence under the punishment of death, and tried to make his horse a Roman consul. As a surprise to no one, his own guards eventually assassinated him. Number 2, Ivan the Terrible, Tsar of all the Russias.
I always get Ivan the Terrible and Vlad the Impaler mixed up.
When terrible becomes your epithet, you know you've done a few bad things during your time. Although considered by many to be an effective ruler, Ivan often fell into fits of uncontrollable rage. One of these fits resulted in the murder of his son, while another resulted in the severe beating of his pregnant daughter-in-law, possibly causing a miscarriage. He also used a mounted police force and gave them absolute power to arrest and execute anyone they desired. Any nobles he disliked he had crushed, going so far as to have one of them eaten alive by dogs, and he massacred the people of Novgorod because he distrusted them. Is it any wonder Joseph Stalin considered him to be a great man? Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are a few Stalin considered him to be the people of Novgorod because he distrusted them. Is it any wonder here are a few dishonorable mentions?
What title hast thou, traitor to the crown?
Lionheart, or is that Richard I?
Number 1, Attila the Hun, ruler of the Hunnic Empire. Nicknamed the Scourge of God, Attila was the ruler of the Huns from 434 to 453. He preyed on the Western Roman Empire, sacking cities and slaughtering their inhabitants. He forced towns to pay large sums of gold to prevent him from attacking. Attila particularly enjoyed gruesome forms of execution, often impaling his enemies through the rectum and leaving them to die a slow, painful death.
I see you in my lands ever again, I will kill you.
In fact, it's said that the corpses of one massacred city completely clogged up the Danube River for years. After his death, he committed one more act of cruelty by having the men who buried him murdered to keep the location of his coffin a secret. Do you agree with our picks? Murdered to keep. After his death, he committed one more act of cruelty by having the men who buried him murdered to keep the location of his coffin a secret.
So obviously he can't say that after he's dead. So he kind of said that before.
Do you agree with our picks?
No. Yes, I do, and I'm glad that Henry VIII wasn't on there, honestly, because although the wife killing and stuff, I feel like there's way worse stuff others have done, like mentioned in the video. Awesome video, guys. Now I've done the most evil queens and evil king. I think Olga still scares me the most. Yeah, awesome. See you next time.